What's going on, guys? Here at having a great day today, and today we are about to talk about some more Mobile Suit Gundam, The Witch from Mercury. This is episode number 15, titled Father and Child. Before I get into my thoughts on this episode, though, I want to hear from you guys, so head on down to the comment section below and let me know what you thought of it if you've seen it, and while you're there, I'd really appreciate if you could leave a like on this video, and subscribe if you're a fan of anime and Japanese gaming content, and want to see plenty more Witch from Mercury coverage in the future. This episode transitions us to Earth, where Guel has been taken captive by the Dawn of Fold as they prepare to flee their hideout. In the aftermath of the Rumble Ring, Nerea beats down Nika, and Shattuck tells Sirius about his plan to sell the Benric Group's assets to Earth. The Spatians seek out the Dawn of Fold, and a battle breaks out between them, resulting in the loss of many on both sides of the conflict. Guel survives alongside a character named Olcott, but unfortunately wasn't able to save a young girl called Cethia. The episode ends with Guel planning to head back to space in order to keep Jetut from going bankrupt, and an end credit scene reveals more to Miorin about her father's motivation behind Quiet Zero. So much like the previous episode, episode number 14, this was once again another incredible episode very early on in the court. I would maybe even say that as a complete episode, this is better than the previous one. Now, the previous one did have that incredible ending and the big reveal and big twist, and whilst the rest of the episode was great, I think this is a consistently fantastic episode, possibly the best of the show so far. For all you people out there that are big fans of Gundam prior to Witch from Mercury, I feel like this is the closest thing to Gundam so far. This definitely feels much more in line with typical Gundam stuff, with, mobile suits versus mobile suits in a proper war scenario taking place on Earth, which, not all Gundam does take place on Earth, but there is a large part of it when you look at Universal Century, and of course Iron-Blooded Orphans and other things like that. Everyone's favourite underdog character has finally returned in this core after 2 episodes of not seeing what he's been up to. We finally get to see what has been happening with Guel, and this character just cannot catch a break. After accidentally murdering his father, he ends up captive by the Dawn of Fold, taken as prisoner, doesn't eat for 3 days straight, and is just completely overwhelmed with grief and regret and this survivor's guilt that he's got going on as well. Whenever there is an episode with Guel in, I usually state that he is probably going to end up being the best written character in the show, and probably going to have the best arc. This episode is just further proof of that. Just everything this character is going through is a prime example of suffering builds character. I think by the time we get to the end of the episode, though, I do feel like you are going to see upward hill bit for Guel. I think he's reached rock bottom with everything he's been through. I struggle to believe that they're going to still continue to throw like horrific stuff at him. He's probably still going to get it, but I do think you're kind of going to see him kind of rebuild himself almost and become a better person than he was initially. He's going to become a happier individual. It's kind of that inevitable arc that he will go through, and I think he deserves it. Now, as we are 15 episodes in, I do feel like we hadn't got much concerning Earth. I think in episode 4 or something like that, we kind of introduced to Earthian House. We got a bit of an idea about their thoughts on things, and of course we did get some news little bits about riots going on Earth. We really hadn't delved into it all that much, but this episode kind of unveils that, but it doesn't go too deep into it. It gives you everything you need to know, and it kind of hints at things. This episode in particular does a great job at showing, not telling, and showing very little to tell you a lot, where you're seeing a character like Olcott, for example, and you're just seeing these brief glimpses of his backstory, and you can kind of piece things together to get a really good idea of the character without them just dedicating like 5 minutes to a straight up flashback sequence. In my opinion, like the way that they did that in this episode was really effective, and if we never see this character again, they kind of did a really good job at actually making you care about him in a 20-minute episode. And whilst out of all the Earthians, he probably gets the most amount of focus put on him in terms of building out his character, just like little brief dialogue exchanges between people, and kind of the relationships you begin to build. A lot of these characters do die in this episode. Pretty much everyone that we are introduced to, aside from a lot of like the younger kids and the women and all that kind of stuff, but all the guys that are part of Dawn of Fold that were introduced to pretty much all get killed in this episode, but you do nicely build out their characters in little ways to, actually give their deaths some sort of impact and weight. And I cannot stress this enough, but it accomplishes all of this in 20 minutes. That's really impressive to me. Like, the first half of the episode is, not really filled with any sort of action, and the last half is the action stuff. It's just got like such a nice balance of building out character, building out the world, and then throwing us some really awesome Gundam action as well. This is like the perfect example of how to take 20 minutes and fill it out effectively. It fully makes use of every single second of its time. After this episode as well, I think you could probably quite easily compare Shattuck to the most notable antagonist within Gundam, Shah Aznable. The motivation is quite similar, of course, with Shah, who was part of, another family that was initially at the head of everything, and then he's sort of infiltrated the villainous organization, if you will, Zeon in that case. You kind of have a similar thing with Shattuck, where he's infiltrated the Benric group as someone who is half earthian. He's intending to get to the top so he can then sell all the assets to Earth. It's essentially so Earth have the upper hand against the Spatians. If a war was to ever break out, Earthians actually have a fighting chance. I do feel like there's probably more to that though. I really hope we get like some backstory, maybe behind the reason why he has a disliking towards Spatians, why he wants to keep Earth protected, because as we know, he was orphaned, he was adopted by Serious Zanelli, but we don't really know what happened before that. We don't know how much time he spent with his parents, were his parents killed in the war that happened before. We don't actually know any of that, and I hope that we do get to learn more about that in the coming episodes, because Shattuck so far, whilst he's a pretty well-rounded character, I do feel like he needs some real dedication to kind of filling him out, especially considering he's arguably the antagonist. If there was one thing I was going to pick up on this episode that I wasn't the biggest fan of, and it's been the same thing with like last episode and such as well, is what they've been doing with Miorin. She's kind of been relegated to end credit scenes that is teasing the same thing. I don't have much interest in this Quiet Zero so far. They have, of course, kind of briefly explained what it is, but not gone into the full backstory and the inevitable consequences of it. And I do hope they do, because at the moment, you could take that right out of this and I wouldn't actually care. I don't care about that whole thing going on, and I think 3 episodes into this core, they've done everything right apart from Miorin. I do feel like she's been really relegated because she's not with the rest of the characters. She's kind of on her own, but they're not dedicating enough time to her. If there's anything that I have disliked from this core so far, not necessarily disliked, but being a little bit underwhelmed by, it's what they've been doing with Miorin. Before I do get out there though, I'd really appreciate if you could leave a like on this video and subscribe if you're a fan of anime and Japanese gaming content. If you want to see more videos on Witch from Mercury in the future, I do cover this series on a weekly basis, so stay tuned because we'll have the episode 16 review coming out very soon. Above all else, I want to hear from you guys, so head on down to the comment section below and let me know what you thought of the way that they built out Earth within this episode, the way that they built out the Dawn of Fold. What did you think of this introduction to Olcott? Do you want to see more of that character in the future? And what do you think of Guel's arc so far? But as always, thank you so much for tuning in to mchat today, and I'll see you all in the next video.